Damn,
I'm
we're
cutting
going
all
down
of
this
it.
rabbit hole,
Yeah,
aren't we?
I'm cutting all of this out.
That's fine.
No, we
It's
have to
gonna.
talk about Morbius.
We
We
can we
can't even
can
talk. We can't even talk about Morbius because the joke is that no one has seen the movie.
That's
this
true.
is true.
Well, that's why you can talk about it because you can just make any implication that you want about it. Anything is up in the air. Anything's possible. That's a crazy thing. It's like when you haven't seen it and it's so bad, like anything really is on the table, to be honest. And that's kind of fascinating too. I'm never going to watch it for any fucking reason ever, because it's a bad movie. But you know, what is in it? Pretty interesting to think about.
Nothing. It's a blank slate that we can just project our dreams onto. This is what they should do. They should
or
start.
our nightmares.
Yeah, they should start pretending to release movies, and then we just imagine what's in them, and that'll be better than the reality.
So it's just collective gaslighting about a movie.
I mean, did
We just
anyone
all agree?
really see the second Ant-Man movie?
I didn't even see the first one,
No.
so
No,
Neither
I
did
don't
I.
believe anyone ever saw it.
Yeah, so
I heard the first one was kind of fun, but I'm like, I can believe that the first one was probably kind of fun. But it's also like, okay, even without seeing it, I know you've burned the entire wick down in terms of what you can possibly do with this and make it interesting. So why would you make a second movie? It's like you managed somehow to make a decent one with the first with the paper thin material you had to begin with. Just let that be and move on. More Bond.
hold on.
more Bond. Well, this kind of brings us into the topic we were kind of gonna sort of talk about maybe, which is guilty pleasure movies and the enjoyment thereof. It's fitting to bring up Marvel movies because you have a mass of humans who should feel guilty about what they watch, but somehow don't.
I just find the fact that they should be guilty about it but aren't being funny.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
no, I totally agree.
Well, it's true.
It's not a joke. They're just bad people.
That's what's so funny. Imagine living in a world where the easiest identifier of whether someone is a morally
NPC or
good or
not.
morally bad person is,
Oh, yeah.
is just what they consume in terms of media. It's like, oh, what's your favorites list? All right, you're just a monster. Like you need to be shuffled off to Australia or something and start over, start a new civilization away from everyone else.
It's not even being a monster, because we'll get to this. My favorites list is full of shit that probably doesn't reflect on me that well as a person. But I still am a person. I have agency. I'm capable of making decisions and judging things that I consume. I'm not just in the mass consuming neoliberal propaganda. But in terms of morality being related to what you consume, I do think there is some reality there. I do think that what people take in, what they choose to take in and identify with, there is something there. It does say something about who you are as a person. Not necessarily in the way that people use that usually, but it is something.
Right. The fact that there's something you identify with in a piece of media correlates somehow, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're guaranteed to be a certain way or act a certain way.
If nothing else, it does reveal what you find interesting.
Yes. Or entertaining.
With the Marvel heads, it's basically a guarantee. If you watch all the Marvel movies, if that's what you're about, what you find interesting is what other people find interesting.
Right. And you also don't mind a complete cookie cutter story that follows a very predictable script.
Well, that's kind of what people mean when they bring up guilty pleasure, right? Because there's multiple ways you can take it. The obvious way, the thing that most people mean, is guilty pleasure is something where you know it's not of great quality, but you still enjoy it just because, I don't know, it's something to do. Then
right,
there's
there's something there that despite most of the elements are bad, you still enjoy that particular part of it.
Yeah, there's that. And then there's the other angle you can take, which is guilty in the sense of you do think it is of high quality, but you don't like the implications of the fact that you're watching it. You don't want people to know about it.
Yes.
Because it's embarrassing in some way. And even that, there can be multiple reasons. It can be embarrassing because you don't think there's anything wrong with it inherently, but it makes you vulnerable to admit that you like it. And then there's, oh, you're actually a bad person if you like this.
Right.
The situation with the Marvel heads is that they watch something that is of impeccable quality. The craftsmanship that goes into the Marvel movies is undeniable. And even on a script writing basis, the whole problem with the Marvel movies is the sentiment behind it, the deep emotions that feed into them. They're unsatisfying unless you're a certain type of person, I think. Or at the very least, you're not going to compulsively consume all of them unless your emotional reality lines up really specifically with the moment that we're in.
Yeah.
Even on the craftsmanship side, Marvel movies, one thing about them, they're actually funny. They're not the funniest, but every Marvel movie does have some jokes that do land. And that's one of the most basic marks of craftsmanship. One thing that mediocre writers can never do is get you to laugh.
This is true.
And the fact that Marvel movies have some genuine laughs in them, there is talent even in the screenwriting. It's not just the effects are good, the screenplays are very competent. But you just somehow feel... Oh, go Ari.
Yeah, I would argue that most of the screenplay writers in Hollywood are far more competent than most people working in anime. I think it's just a fact. Doesn't mean that I like what they produce more. But yeah, I think anime is probably largely made up by people who are animation fanatics who kind of find themselves having to be pushed into writing screenplays for their ideas rather than being like dedicated screenplay writers. Like you can be a dedicated screenplay writer and being employed by Hollywood and that's your passion, writing screenplays, right? I don't know how many people join the anime industry because they're passionate about writing screenplays and that's all they want to do. It's like, no, they want to be in anime. They want to be, helping with the drawings and they're obsessed with visual, media and animation in general. And it's like they kind of have to do the screenplay as a matter of course to make their vision come to life. So it seems more like a duty than like an art. I don't know. I'm obviously like making extreme assumptions here, so don't take anything I'm saying here as gospel. But that's kind of the idea that I get.
One aspect of that is the transition from manga to light novels as source material.
Mm-hmm.
Because one advantage of the manga era is to make a manga, even a not spectacular manga, to begin with, you have to be an extremely talented artist. I'm comfortable saying the exact middle published manga author is way more talented than like the third best light novel author.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
Even if the story and the dialogue are an afterthought for them, it filters out complete losers because they have to go through a whole period of training and study and craftsmanship just to get to the point where they can even try. Where with light novels, it's just, do you own a computer?
Oh, I do. I could be a light novelist.
You literally could.
Not a light novelista. Yeah, it's because to be a mangaka, like, I'm not saying that mangaka aren't passionate about storytelling or that they can't be extremely talented with it, but they're obsessed with drawing first. Like, that's the thing that they have to do. They have to draw, and then they have to build a story around their drawings. And obviously, you're going to have some people who are extraordinarily competent at building a story, but it almost seems like more as a matter of course. Like, they just happen to be talented in both things, right? It's an extraordinary skill set that they manage to have both. Right? But you can be an extraordinary, visual artist, but not be able to really do that great with the script or
right. Well, a lot of times
story beats and things like that. Yeah, I'm talking like purely the skill of the person who made it, like the person who's putting it all on paper. So yeah, a great editor, can produce wonders in taking something solid and taking it absolutely to the next level. But in terms of the wearing all hats needed to do that, it's like you got to wear I agree with Green, like you got to wear the expert artist. I mean, there are a few exceptions, right? Like One, who does One Punch Man. Is his name One? Like, I don't follow mangaka very closely.
Yep,
so who did One Punch Man and Mob Psycho? Yeah, who's not a great artist. Let's be honest.
He's gotten better.
It's distinct, though. Right, exactly, but he's learning as he goes. So I would not call him a master artist at
Well,
the moment.
the funny thing about one is he never got better at drawing people, or if he did, it was barely, where he went from the level of a 4-year-old to a 6-year-old. But he's gotten a lot better at drawing inanimate objects, like rubble in particular. If you go into the Mob Psycho 100 arc where they're doing the exorcism of that teenage girl, one can draw fucking rocks and pieces of broken building like nobody's business now. The characters still look
That's
like
awesome.
crown drawings, but he can draw rubble like crazy.
And there are a couple other cases like that too that I can think of. So you have that one. You have who's the mangaka that did Attack on Titan? He got a lot of shit early on, but his
Ishiyama.
drawing sucked.
Yep, we talked
Okay.
about that with Jaws. He agrees.
and then also even Ranking of Kings, right?
The Rankin of Kings guy also started in his 40s.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
never
that,
too
that
late.
helps explain it.
Yeah, he
Well,
started
it is.
very late in life.
According to Sam Hyde, once you're 30, it's pretty much over for a skill set. But we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Well,
Didn't Morgan Freeman start acting like in his 70s or something?
yeah, but he was born 55, so does that really count?
Oh, okay.
It's,
There's something crazy late in life.
It's like Benjamin Button if he just stays old forever.
I think it's more that most people just don't like to change after they hit 30.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's almost subjectively true.
but it's tied to neuroplasticity to some extent.
To some
I
extent,
think
it
it certainly
is.
it makes it easier to pick something up when you're younger and you're more neuroplastic, but I don't think it means you can't or that you're screwed.
Well, one thing about psychological traits is most of them change over time, but if you look at them closely, a lot of those changes are caused by change in life situation, especially having
Yeah.
kids. Where if you take people who never have kids and never move into an adult life situation, their personality does change over time in the usual way, but it's not as intense as people who actually have kids.
Right.
So
well, and
basically
having
you're
kids
saying that
necessitates. Sorry, go ahead.
Having kids forces you to grow up. Basically.
Yeah, basically, and there's probably a biological aspect to that. Another thing, another aspect is, the structure of scientific revolutions, Cone?
Don't think so.
Okay, well, he's the guy who said that science does not change continually over time. It's people get locked in one stupid idea, there's a sudden massive break, and then everyone just immediately moves into the new idea. One thing he said about paradigm shifts is they're usually triggered by younger people, younger scientists, but it's not just younger scientists, it's younger scientists or older ones who worked in a different field before. Where it's not necessarily just being young, it's that they're not already in the system, they haven't chosen a team yet, so even if they're 50,
Right.
if they come into a new field they've never been in, the fact that they don't have any alliances to any of the camps, it allows them to act like young people. It allows them to have new ideas.
Right.
That makes
It's
sense.
more the familiarity of being in the system for so long keeps you from thinking certain ways. And you get a new set of or what are they? I don't know what. Somebody young blood comes in and
Yeah, they have nothing to lose. Where the real problem with science is that once people get settled in their careers, they get really biased towards the research they've already done because their prestige is tied to it. If you just show up on day one and you haven't picked who you side with yet, if you notice something in the data that doesn't make any sense, you can just go, oh, this doesn't make sense. And you don't lose anything because you haven't done anything yet.
right.
Okay, we're getting a little off topic here. So we were talking about guilty pleasure shows. John, why are you guilty? What are you guilty about? What are you hiding?
Define guilty.
You define guilty.
already
I'm
did.
asking you.
Okay.
What is your concept
Because
of guilt, John?
Guilty pleasure is two things. It's liking something that you know is bad,
Bad,
or liking
okay.
something that you know people would hate you for,
For
liking.
liking.
Yeah,
or
John.
I'm
Where does
scum
your
for liking this?
where does your guilt come from? What are we going to cancel you for?
Oh, and I don't think I'm cancelable, but I don't know. I tend to not call things guilty pleasures that are objectively bad, but I still found something in them that I enjoyed. Because you can still point to something in there that's good, if that makes sense.
It does?
But as far as like, oh, I'm going to be embarrassed if people find out I consumed this and enjoyed it. It's usually the stuff with like ecchi or perverted stuff in it. I think one show I watched was season 1 of How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. I don't know if either of you saw that.
I know of it, but no, I haven't seen it.
Okay, it's your typical isekai reincarnated as my game character kind of thing, but like every stinking episode of it, there's some kind of situation the main character gets put in where he's got to do something lewd to one of his party members, and they have to wear these slave collars because they fucked up summoning him because he has this magic ring that reflects all magic. So he was supposed to be their summon, but it redirected back to them, and now they're basically his slaves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I sometimes read stories where the powers are literally powered by rape.
I've heard of such things.
I think I'm making an oblique reference to Redo of Healer, which we'll get to.
Oh, yeah, definitely familiar with that one. Have not read it, but...
I have. I'm a healer head, and I accept that makes me a bad person. Healer chads keep losing.
Keep losing.
Or winning, depending on how you look at it. But
Healer chads keep sinning. R.A.
So-
What is your take on guilt? Why do you feel guilty? Tell me your sins.
it's confession booth, huh? Wow.
Yeah.
It's his Sunday, so
That's true.
let's go.
And both our avatars are pointing at you. It's also Memorial Day weekend. Give me your memories.
Memories.
Or just what's your overall take on guilty pleasure? Like, how do you experience this?
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this outside of this podcast, but basically, I don't seek out bad media to have fun watching. I just don't. I have so little time to watch even the things that I do genuinely want to watch that I don't. That seems like a massive waste of time. Like, I don't give a shit about Sharknado or whatever, like, or all the sequels. It's like, I'm literally never going to watch that. Sure, if I'm with a group of people that are watching it, I might do that, but it's just not my idea of a good time. It's not that I have any problem with it existing. I just have literally no interest in engaging with it. I rather would just watch something good. That was at least the attempt was made for it to be good.
You'd also drop something you weren't enjoying if you thought it was bad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably wouldn't sunk cost fallacy something.
Yeah, it's for 99% of things, if I don't like it fairly early on, I'm not gonna stick it out. I don't care like what people have to say about, oh, it gets good near the end or whatnot. It's like, it should be good now, and it's not. So I'm not going to take I can take your word on it, but also realize that
right.
It's probably
what you're
just
asking
not worth
of
my
me
time.
is to sit through another however many episodes or hours or whatever of this.
Like, yeah, like I've heard that argument used with like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I've watched the first 2 or 3, probably just the first 2 episodes, and it wasn't bad. I just felt no connection to it, what was happening whatsoever. And I've heard the argument, pushed around before, where it's like, well, they're actually just trying to like get through the stuff that was covered in the earlier Full Metal Alchemist, right? And when it actually gets beyond that, it gets unbelievable. And it's like, I could probably I'm sympathetic probably to that argument, but yeah, I just don't care.
That's true. And to be fair, no piece of media exists in a vacuum either. So there's always going to be outside context to something.
Right.
That you may or may not personally take into consideration.
Right. So, in fact, if I were to actually watch anything Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, I probably would just watch the original one, even though the ending, kind of, I've heard they kind of fumbled the ending, but I've heard it's actually pretty good throughout most of it. It probably doesn't reach the same highs, but I probably would just be more interested in watching the original and not getting the amazing payoff necessarily than sit through 2/3 that's really just a chore than the 1/3 that's amazing. So, but anyway, I'm getting off topic there.
You sure are.
But yeah, thank you, Green. I'm gonna reorient myself here. But guilty. But yeah, I mainly engage with media that I consider in poor taste. Maybe it's not necessarily bad. It's just in poor taste, or it would get people's eyes opening a little bit and wondering what the implications of me liking that are. Which seems kind of funny and fucked up because it's mainstream now to play Grand Theft Auto when you're literally murdering like prostitutes and police officers en masse, like
Right.
en masse, and it's just considered like a normal thing to like. And it's like, by the way, like I like Red Theft Auto. I'm not a big gamer or anything, but like I think it's pretty fucking fun. I'm not at any risk of going on a rampage. Okay, it's not that there's nothing that I do in there that I consider a valve or pressure release for anything I'm experiencing in the real world. It's just fun to do. It's a sandbox to do crazy shit, and then you're done, and then you move on with your life. And it's like, but I mean, that kind of was. I don't say that was as much a guilty pleasure historically, but like that was a major like moral panic thing for a while. Until it just became so normalized that we forget about it. So
Yeah,
slippery
we kind
slope. Yay.
don't care about
Um,
violence in video games now. It's mostly just lewd
And-
stuff, and only if it's from Japan
Yeah.
that we care about now.
Yeah. So it's if I can play that and you can have teenagers play that and not have any implication that they're looking to go on a murder spree in real life. I also don't understand why you couldn't watch something like How to Summon a Demon Lord and realize that like, okay, I'm not actually interested in having
Yeah, I'm not actually trying to summon a demon lord.
I'm not actually interested in having magical sex slaves. Or the implication of that.
No, and I mean, I would
yeah.
argue you would vastly improve that story by removing all of the etchy elements from it, but I might be in the minority on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you're definitely in the minority that would actually watch it.
Yeah, that's true, but I'm also not asking for it to be changed either. It's just one of those things that this is not the story I would write, but I do like the characters.
So I actually did used to have something that it's very odd. It was not a guilty pleasure at the time, but in retrospect became a guilty pleasure, or at least something like, oh shit, like I should have been so fucking embarrassed that I like that and let people know that. In high school, I was absolutely obsessed with the movie Happy Feet. You guys know that. I'm not saying you necessarily. I'm not necessarily saying. I'm not necessarily saying you've seen it.
Movie?
Yeah, I was completely obsessed with it.
Okay,
I watched.
no, I
I
didn't
watched it
see
like
it, but-
I watched it like every day. For a while. I'm not even kidding. I don't know how long, at what period I watched it every day. But I have seen that movie. Like there was a certain point where I thought I'd watched it so many times I could probably recite the whole script in order.
Did you learn the
anyway,
dances?
but I never
That's
actually
the real
did it.
question.
Right?
No, I never learned the dances. So
You didn't wear a little
that's
tuxedo
but anyway.
and shuffle your feet in front of the TV?
No, didn't do that. Just watched it. But I did not hide the fact either that I was obsessed with it. Like people at school knew I was obsessed with it. Like my friends knew I was obsessed with it. My parents knew I was obsessed with it. Like, and actually, like the moment that broke my heart with it, and this is me being actually very serious here, where I kind of realized, like, I mean, it was hurtful at the time, but I realized retrospectively it's like a ridiculous phase of my life. It's like I actually, you know how most movies have a video game release that's terrible.
Oh no.
Yeah. Or at least during that,
like
that
Ara-
era.
like
they
Ara-
did.
like Aragon was like a terrible movie, and then they had an even worse video game.
I
Books are
actually
pretty
It's not
though,
that good.
by the way.
It's just-
I actually played the Aragon game as a teenager.
Oh, no.
I didn't watch the movie. People told me the movie was even worse. The weird thing though
Oh my
was
God, that's funny.
the game was not based on the book. It was based on the movie. So I was playing the game just trying to figure out like what the movie was like based on the game.
Yeah. Well, and the movie
Yeah.
was a very, very crude adaptation of the books.
Yeah.
So
I'm unfairly singling out Aragon here. I think we all understand what I'm talking about,
yeah.
though. But there was a video game. There was a Happy Feet video game too, and I bought it, and I was playing it in my living room at home. I'm probably like a junior in high school or something. And my dad's having like breakfast at the dining room table, as I'm playing out in the open. And then he like, I'm not saying it like the beginning of me playing. I'm probably on like the second or third day of me playing it, but he just bursts out laughing at one point, and it's very like snorting into his cereal bowl like type of laughing, and I realize he's laughing at me.
oh, no.
He's not laughing at what's happening in the game. He's laughing at just the absurdity of the situation. And that made me like extremely self-conscious. And I think that definitely
no.
started to spin things back to like, oh, I should really hate myself for this, for liking this. Because like, obviously in retrospect, like I could realize like, okay, it's like kind of absurd taking it too far. I have not watched it in many years. I probably have not seen it since my senior year of high school or something. So that was like gosh, well over 10 years ago. So it's like I'm not obsessed with it. I don't have any like the merchandise anymore or anything like that. Like it's done and dusted. But like that's more like retrospect. It's like, wow, that was pretty embarrassing.
Oh, okay,
Those things
Go,
are hard
John.
to see when you're in the middle of it, though.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Well,
Like I
think
can't judge
told-
myself too harshly about it.
Yesterday, me and RA were chatting. I told him about the time that I lived with my former roommates, and it was right when I was getting way more into anime. And they brought up Monster Musume because I mentioned that I was watching it, and they were intrigued
This
enough
is a
by the
great. This is a great story. I just
No, it's really not.
preface-
It's not even a
It's a great
story.
story.
It's more a moment
Yes, it
in
is.
my life. Well, it was very funny. I think what actually started the conversation was they were putting together IKEA furniture in the next room while I was watching anime. And as a joke, they yelled, "Hey Green, would you have sex with a woman that was half snake?" And I yelled back, "That's called a lamia, and maybe."
You're a terrible person. You know that, Green?
I really am. And this was like the start of me slipping into depravity. So that wasn't even this. I view this as like childish now. It doesn't even occur to me as bad. But
No, that's funny.
that started.
That's really funny.
But this led to a chain of events where they started asking about what I had been watching lately and why I found it
Oh
interesting.
no.
And it eventually led to, okay, you know what? While we're putting this furniture together, let's just throw up the first episode of Monster Musume, see what happens. And I had become so numb to ecchi stuff by then that it didn't even register with me that Monster Musume was kind of bad. Then it got to the opening scene, which is Mia, the giant snake girl, wrapped around the main character in the bed and accidentally strangling him in his sleep and smothering his face with her breasts. And then it got to him trying to push her away and her moaning horrendously and blushing and jiggling her tits around. And my roommates jumped up in horror and said, "Green, this is porn." And I had the horrifying realization, oh, it kind of is a little bit, isn't it? I just watched porn with my normie roommates.
Nice going, Green.
I can't put this genie back in the bottle.
Oops.
I'm just that guy now. Holy shit, there's no going back.
I mean, the Castlevania Netflix series has a sex scene in it.
Does she
But
fucking
it's
moan
like-
orgasmically and flush in front of the camera?
Oh, probably not that bad, no.
Well, then it
Look, I was
doesn't
watching
fucking
that.
count, does it, John?
I don't know.
Yeah, that was that was a moment of me being a weirdo.
Like, and it's bad enough if someone discovers like the porn that you watch or something. Like that's bad enough. But it's also like if the stuff that you're willing to openly share is weird, it makes them wonder even more. Like, oh shit, we're
God.
dealing with a fucking degenerate.
I mean, you joke. At this point, I've been ran through the ringer so hard that I don't even register most shit as that bad. You have to go pretty fucking far for me to even notice it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Do you realize like what this kind of makes you like a little bit, Green?
A
Taxi Driver
monster. Taxi Driver, sure.
where he takes his date to the movies and it's a porno, and it doesn't even register with him that would be a weird thing to take a date to, and then she like leaves because it's really fucking weird that you would take a date to a porno.
It's honestly like that. It is weird when you realize how far you've fallen. It was actually funny. One of the first times I ever got high, I was in my apartment alone in Seattle, but YouTube was open. And as a result, all of these anime girls were in the recommended videos because I'd been listening to a bunch of OPs. So, of course, my screen is just full of anime girls. And I had a moment of psychedelic clarity where I realized, oh, I'm used to this. Someone who wasn't used to it would find it really fucking weird.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, lysergic acid amide. I needed to know that about myself. I'll keep this hidden from now on.
Bury it deep within yourself.
I mean, we're going to dig more into your Happy Feet episode because I feel like this is just too rich a well of emotion to pass up. I will say, I had a similar experience when I I was probably literally 14. It was one of my dad's weekends where I was at his house, and that meant that if I wanted to watch the new episode of Naruto, because back in the day you had to do that, I had to watch it in real life. And there was only one TV in the living room, and I decided I decided to risk it because I wanted to watch the new episode of Naruto. The dog ninja guy, it was the Chunin exams. Naruto was fighting the dog ninja guy. I think his name is Kiba. Things were getting fucking intense. And my dad walked in at one point, sat over at the kitchen table, kind of looked over. And at one point, he mimicked the character on the TV show by yelling, "Oh no, Akamaru!" And I died. That was the end of my relationship with my dad on some level.
But wait, there's one thing I don't understand. So was he mocking the show?
Yes!
Or was he trying to... Oh, okay, got it. Okay, just making sure. Because it is possible, like, albeit unlikely, that he was kind of getting into it. And...
No.
Okay, got it. Just making sure. Got it. So he was
No,
mocking it. So it's kind of like... just before I forget, because it's just the perfect moment to bring this up, has everyone here seen the Robot Chicken skit on Inuyasha?
Yes, and that is the...
Has everyone seen that?
I have,
Am I
and
the
it is
only one who's
fucking
seen
incredible.
That? It's so funny. It's one of the... It's still, like, there's a lot of, like, humor in Robot Chicken that, like, you know, maybe doesn't impact me in the same way. That one impacts me the exact same time, every single time. It will just eternally be hilarious and genius.
For those who don't know, the skit is that the dad wants to watch TV, the daughter is watching Inuyasha, so he cozies up next to her and starts getting really into the show. It leads to him becoming a super mega weeb, dressing up like Inuyasha. It peaks at a point where the daughter can hear the parents having sex, and the dad is yelling, "Call me
Inuyasha!
Call me Inuyasha," and calling the mom Kagome.
Kagome.
Oh no.
Call me Inuyasha, Kagome.
And it turns out to be an extended scheme to just get the girl off the couch so he can watch what he wants to watch. You know, good for the dad.
He wants to watch the Detroit Red Wings hockey game, if I remember correctly.
And by God, he does.
He does.
It was not that. My dad was a 300-pound former meth head construction worker who at the time was a redneck who worked in, I don't know, material shipping. Not a big fan of anime, to be completely honest.
Not the target demographic.
Nope, not the target demographic, as a certain mafia boss would say. Yeah. But you see, I wised up a little bit, and I decided, okay, I'm going to watch Naruto at my dad's house, but I'm only going to do it when I am secure and alone, and he's not around. And then, wouldn't you know it, they got to the arc where Naruto meets Jiraiya, also known as the pervy sage, and is trying to harass him into being his teacher. And my stepmom walks in at the exact moment that Naruto turns into a sexy naked lady to try to get the old man to be friends with him. And I think that was the last moment I ever trusted another human being.
Yeah.
The anime does have a knack, though, in turning into the most embarrassing thing possible at the worst possible moment.
When I played the Catherine game originally on PS3, like a decade ago, my cousin walked in during one of the early scenes where she's flirting with him or whatever and getting real close to him. Like, oh, you happen to walk in on the one cutscene I wouldn't have wanted anybody to walk in on. Thanks.
We're cursed. We're all cursed in some way.
Well, that's just being an anime fan or a Japanese media fan. You just internalize the reality. I'm a son of a bitch, so I'm just going to make the best of it.
Right, but you have to learn that, though. It has to be learned through difficult experience. That's what has to happen.
Well, that's why we call anime fans degenerates, right? Like, there's just no getting around that.
Well, you have little moments of self-awareness.
I mean, unless you just like Dragon Ball, which is like plenty of people.
I do.
It's like I wouldn't consider someone liking.
It's not all of it.
I'm just saying if you exclusively like Dragon Ball, I wouldn't really consider you a degenerate. I mean,
no, I mean that's like transcended anime at this point. You're not even
I don't
like Dragon Ball.
I don't value their opinion at all on anything anime related. But you're not a degenerate if you just like a handful of anime. I would say.
Yeah, especially if it's all just battle shonen.
Yeah.
There are so many poor young souls who start watching Dragon Ball Z, not knowing where this will eventually take them.
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, damn.
I think it would actually be a fun segue just for a moment without taking super long here, where like we could talk about. I mean, we're all talking about like fairly early memories, right? So what got us into anime? Well, it was just like my first exposure to anime was Toonami.
Yes.
I would say that the first thing I ever liked was because of Toonami, but I had like a major period where I just totally like 100% or almost 100% forgot about it. It's like I only liked basically one thing on Toonami. I liked Dragon Ball Z. I watched a tiny bit of Gundam Wing and understood none of it. I watched a tiny bit of Sailor Moon, understood and liked none of it. It was just Dragon Ball. And then my parents got rid of cable in the year 2000 entirely, and I never had any exposure to it ever again. Like, very occasionally I would see something Dragon Ball related, like, oh yeah, I remember Dragon Ball, like I remember the Frieza arc and things like that. But like, there's like but what got me back in anime was not Dragon Ball Z or rewatching it. It was like a totally separate experience. It was almost like it's almost like my childhood experiences actually had no impact on my future, which is very odd, which is like not a common thing that I think, it's not something I think is common with most other people. It's like they got an anime and they're nostalgic, that they have the connection to their childhood and that, and like I don't have that connection at all, even though I literally liked anime when I was a kid. There was just like a huge stretch of time that I had no exposure to it at all.
I had a similar experience with that, because I think we had Cartoon Network off and on when I was younger, like early teens, mid-teens, high school age. So I would watch Toonami, and they'd have, your Dragon Ball episodes. I think I kind of started Naruto and wasn't very into it when it was still on. Ended up reading a lot of the manga later. But there was a period where it just didn't have Cartoon Network for a while, so we didn't have Toonami, so I just didn't have any exposure to anime in general, and I didn't really go back to it until like 4 or 5 years ago, and some friends of mine that were really into it was like, here, you should watch this, and this, and this. And then I got back into it pretty heavily at that point.
Kind of the same with me, honestly. When I was young, I always liked anime. I always would have called myself an anime fan if you asked me.
Right.
I did not. I only watched shows that were broadcast on network TV for a pretty long time. There were a few exceptions. As a teenager, I started watching some shows online. When I realized that you could watch subbed Naruto and it was faster and ahead of what we had in the West.
Yep.
That was kind of the death knell for me, because then I spent months doing literally nothing but watching Naruto every spare moment I had out of school until I was caught up.
Yeah, they had like 2 years or more on the dub, I think.
Yeah, it was very far ahead. Naruto had a big gap. But fucking...
Not to mention like 2 years of filler.
And you have to remember with Naruto, it was back in the day where they did have the constant filler arcs. So once they started going, it was every week for years.
Right, because they want to keep their time slot, so they have to keep the weekly episodes going.
Oh yeah, but when I was young, Naruto was the big one. Naruto is the first show that I got fucking obsessed with. I never watched Bleach. I did watch a little bit of Dragon Ball here and there, never really liked it.
You did not miss anything by not watching Bleach, I can tell you that now.
That's fine. A lot of people say that. I watched some Gundam Seed, didn't really understand it, but I did like what I saw. I watched Zatch Bell. I watched a lot of just the random shows we got. I watched Inuyasha as a kid. My dad never dressed up as Inuyasha, although he probably would have thought that was funny to do. And then I didn't become a flat-out otaku until my early mid-20s, like 5 years ago. I think the real bridge is when you start watching shows that have never been broadcast in the West, that's when you're in trouble.
Turn back now!
No, because once you start, you're not turning back. It's too late. No, I don't know that there was a point that I ever wasn't an otaku, but...
Well, you think that there's time to turn back until you watch Monogatari, and that's when it's actually too late.
Oh shit, I'm almost done with that.
Yep, you're fucked.
Oops.
I'm the only one here who hasn't watched Monogatari.
I started it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well, Green, I have to watch Kaiji first. So
you sure do.
What's it gonna be? Monogatari or Kaiji, Green?
Kaiji. We need to progress this conversation a bit.
but I think it was a decent enough segue in the sense that like we were talking about like embarrassing early memories with media.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, how did you actually get started? Like,
We're actually kind of on track again. I'm just trying to find shit that you guys seem, passionate about and like you have emotions about. I will.
I'm stone cold green. I don't feel anything.
Oh,
I feel too much.
I feel
Damn.
just enough to not get
I
arrested
feel
for
that
sexual assault.
you were arrested for sexual assault.
No, it was a joke. Don't.
John's a rapist. This is a new angle. John,
No.
why are you a rapist? What anime convinced you to be a rapist?
Yeah, I know exactly, right? Redo of Healer?
Yeah, redo of Healer. Is that
Is
why
that
you
what it
rape
was?
people?
No,
John.
I haven't seen that.
Who did you rape?
Who did you healer?
Who did you redo?
Who did? Oh God.
Who did you redo? Oh shit!
Maybe Healer might be a good entry point because I will say about Healer, this is how you have to approach Healer. For those of you who don't know, Healer is just, they would call it a native isekai where it feels like an isekai world, but it's just a fantasy world. Healer is a show where the whole gimmick is the author is trying to see how unsympathetic he can make the main character while still having you care about the story. The main character is a despicable, evil, raping, manipulative monster, and the only reason you support him is because the enemies are that just much, much worse. Where him and the enemies are basically just like each other, it's just the enemies take it to such comical, evil extremes that you still end up liking the main character, kind of.
Yeah, by default, like you have to like him.
And it's a Dexter situation where instead of a serial killer who only kills serial killers, it's a rapist who only rapes rapists. You laugh. That's literally what it is.
No, I'm not.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is.
I don't disbelieve you. It's just funny.
Yeah,
I have no. Trust me. I have no reason to disbelieve anyone's explanation of a anime show's premise at this point. It's like, yep, that sounds like something anime would do.
On some level, it is a load of horseshit because Healer can only do what he does because he was coincidentally trapped in a world where other people are worse than him. If he ever defeats his enemies, it'll be one of those cruel, ironic endings where he looks in a mirror and realizes the only one left to rape is himself.
Guess I'll fuck myself then.
I mean, I agree with you that that's certainly something that would raise people's eyebrows for like. I mean, take Goblin Slayer, right? The
Goblin
fucking
Slayer
freak
is
out
different.
over that.
Okay. Goblin Slayer is
But I'm
actually
not-
a great
but I'm not-
angle here.
I'm not arguing that it's good or bad, but just like that had a. It's so weird. It's like that one almost seemed to have more of a freak out than Redo of Healer.
Well, this is the thing.
Maybe
well, the difference.
I was more involved in AniTube at the time. Now I literally don't give a shit about AniTube or what anyone's fucking arguing about because literally who gives a shit. But like, man, when I was more into it, it's like, whew, that ruffled some feathers.
The distinction there is Redo of Healer, it's an exploitation movie. It's pornography. The cruelty is the point. Redo of Healer is all about just exploring the emotion of how much bad shit can I watch a protagonist do before it ends. There's really nothing to Healer beyond that. It's a game that the author is playing with you, where the author keeps going, huh? You think that's bad? You think that's bad? What if I do this? Yeah, what if I do this? You start losing sympathy for Healer, then the author goes, okay, but now the bad guys will rape this person 50 times, and Healer only did it once. And you go, oh, okay, I guess they're worse then. I'm rooting for Healer again. The really tense moments in Healer are not the important plot points. It's the little moments of you going, is the author really gonna do it? This person is a very borderline case. It's like, is it fair for this specific person to get the Healer treatment? I don't know if they're quite there yet. Then at the last minute, they just barely push it too far. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess we're doing this. Where the quality of the story is almost ancillary.
Not to go off on a tangent here, but do you ever wonder how mangaka? Cause it was a manga originally, right? It must have been.
Yes,
I
the
believe
manga
so, yeah.
is actually it might be a light novel.
Okay.
There is a manga though, because I only read the manga. The manga is 50 times better than the show. Do not watch the show.
Yeah, I've heard it was a fairly bad adaptation.
It was a completely incompetent adaptation because the first episode they move things out of order, trying to I don't know, play games with sympathy. But what they end up doing is totally removing the motive for caring about the story. It's just fucking confusing.
Well, that's too bad. And it was a light novel first.
Yeah, there are time travel shenanigans early on, and they undid that partially, and they just completely invalidate the reason you would care in the first place. RA, go.
But it's like, how do you think mangaka or light novel artists ever break to their parents like why they got famous? Because it's just like, how embarrassing is it? Like, I mean, how little pride do you have to like, hey, mom and dad, I made however many million yen from writing this book. Here's the book, mom and dad. Redo of Healer. I hope you enjoy reading it, mom and dad.
Oh my goodness.
It's just like, I think I would have to write it under a pen name if I were, and literally never tell my parents that I had ever written that. It's just
It'd get really weird when the mom would ask, hey, why does the love interest have my name? Okay, that I know. Fuck. God damn it. That's a bad joke. But a while ago. God damn it. Calm down. It's a fucking joke.
I know it's a joke.
And it would happen too. It's not like it's that fucking crazy in the scheme of novel authors.
Yeah, I know. Compared to how bad the shit that they write already is, it's like, yeah, of course they would throw that in.
That would be the actual weird one. It would be those stories. A while ago, there were a bunch of parody news articles saying the author of Eromanga Sensei and Orihimo is having a very difficult relationship with his sister these days. When I saw that, I thought it was totally real, but it turned out to be a parody article. It's still funny though. I think the only redemption there, and it kind of ties into what we're talking about, Japan has a cultural script for how to write people off. Like in the West, we have this keeping up appearances thing.
Yes.
But there's no real way to opt out of it. There's no way to lose with not dignity, but at least it makes sense. It's over. In Japan, they just have a little cultural area where they say, okay, if you can't hack it as an actual decent human being, you go over there, you stay there, you can do whatever you want, just don't inconvenience us. Like, they're willing to write you off as a failure. In America, there's this do-gooder attitude of, oh no, we have to save everyone. And then you end up not saving people.
In that accent.
Yeah, in that accent. No child left behind.
Did I do an accent?
You definitely did an accent.
Okay,
you'll catch it in the recording.
Okay, fine. But we have this attitude that in America, we're willing to write people off, but we're never willing to admit that we're writing people off. So what that ends up being is these constant attempts to be a do-gooder, and you reach out to people and say, oh no, you can be normal. You can come back. You start liking normal things. Watch some Marvel movies. But in reality, it never actually happens. In Japan, they can process, oh, this person just sucks. I don't have to rationalize it. It's like, oh, one of my sons ended up being a light novel author. I would prefer he ended up a serial killer, but I'll take it. I can't change people. I just have to roll with it.
At least if he were a serial killer, I could better understand him and his motivations.
Well, it's like the parents over here that would rather their kids be on drugs and playing video games, right?
Than watching anime?
No.
Oh.
I've actually heard somebody make the claim they would rather have their kids doing drugs than playing video games.
Yeah, it depends what drugs.
But yeah, of course, the Japanese would have an interesting way of canceling people without canceling them, kind of. That is so like them. They have to compartmentalize the problem.
In Japan, you can have
But we don't have compartments in America. Everything, everywhere.
Yeah.
America has this middle class mentality of everyone has to be in everyone's shit. In Japan, they're willing to acknowledge, okay, there are going to be some aspects of people's lives that are not that pleasant to look at. As long as they keep it to themselves and away from me, I'm going to just not think about it.
Yeah, and over here, it's almost like you're expected to not only accept every aspect of somebody's life, but encourage and welcome it.
Yeah, in Japan, you're allowed to have secrets. Like, in America, you can have secrets, but you have to pretend that you don't. In Japan, they just acknowledge, oh yeah, people just have areas of their lives that they keep separate. That's usually fine.
Well, is it truly keeping it separate though when they create a hit light novel or mangaka series? Maybe, I don't know, but like what actually prompted this thought in me initially was when I heard about the Rent a Girlfriend mangaka, which is obviously like I wouldn't call it like mainstream, but it's a very successful, certainly it's a very successful manga and hit anime show overall,
Yeah.
despite its strange implications, or not the most,
Well, the average Japanese
not the
person probably
most-
looks at that and goes, oh yeah, we should do this.
not the most dignified
Right.
implication there. But he's working on a follow-up manga that's like it is like an extended family like incest
Oh my
Like-
goodness.
etchy thing, and it's just like I don't know how you pass someone off to mom and dad. I don't know how you do
Yeah.
that.
I don't think
this
I
is
could
like-
ever write a story I wouldn't be okay with my parents reading.
It's just
You
like,
know?
is the link between the past truly broken?
Maybe.
Are the family ties totally gone? I guess then it wouldn't give a shit, but it's just like Rent a Girlfriend's bad enough, and then it's just like I was just reading like the basic plot synopsis here. It's like I would not be comfortable as a parent reading this. Like it's like this is one of the points where it's just like, yeah, probably should disown your son if we're going this far. It probably is just for the best for everyone at this point. Oh, you had siblings. You viewed them this way. Okay. Yeah, you can't be in the family anymore.
That's how the cookie
be that as
crumbles
it-
sometimes.
That's how the cookie crumbles. Bruce Almighty.
Good movie too.
But yeah, I think though, like, I think a kind of an interesting angle, that we could take on this is like if you view all anime as something of a guilty pleasure to some extent, it's like how do you compartmentalize that with the world? How do you balance the secret aspect of it with the public facing aspect, right? And public facing you can define in like two ways. Like public, like do I consider like my Twitter account public facing? Not really, no. Because it's like it is all anonymous people and I have followers, not many, but I have some. And it's like that's the audience there. And I got to at least pick to some extent who my followers are, because I can just block people if I don't want them following me, right? So that's not really like public facing, because it's not really like it's public facing if they can tie your name and address to something, okay? Like that's public facing. Like my people at work, that's public facing. My family, public facing. Me walking around in the grocery store, okay, that's close enough. Maybe they can't pin it to like my address, but like I'm clearly this person. I'm clearly like a real human being and I look like this. So I would just be interested, because it's like, do you keep it like completely hidden? It seems like probably not, right? It seems like that would be probably pretty much impossible to do anyway. But you can tie it into two ways. It's like specific media properties, right? That like you don't want people to know that you like, but also just like kind of your persona, your real life persona in general
Right.
as well too. Like my dad likes Cowboy Bebop. I've watched Cowboy Bebop literally with him. He unironically enjoys it. I unironically enjoy it. But I'm not going to go that much farther with it then. Let's put it that way with my family.
A problem that often comes up is it's normal for anime fans to like anime and then slowly get more into it over time.
Mhm.
It often starts with shows that most people would not be that embarrassed about. Where does anyone really care if you watch Dragon Ball Z when you're 17?
No.
But then
Well,
it
your
keeps
dad
going.
would.
Well, yeah. Well, he probably
my dad
would. He
liked
would at least
Dragon Ball.
he would
and
at
would
least
watch it
fucking
with us,
get it
so-
though. If my
Right.
dad had seen me watching Dragon Ball Z, I think he would at least get it. He would make fun of it, but he would kind of at least understand the appeal. A lot of shit, just no. And a problem with anime fans is you get more into it over time. So if you ever do hit the point where it's like, oh, I should probably be self-conscious about this, everyone already knows you're into it, just not how much.
Right.
In my case, lots of people know I'm in the anime, but I'm somewhat protected by the fact that almost everyone in my life treats it with total contempt and treats most of what I care about with contempt. So I almost have jester's privilege in a way where no one gives a shit to begin with, so they don't really ask questions.
That's good.
One of my former roommates
I
back when
think.
I was... Yeah, kind of. In some cases, I think they just got scared of wondering what the truth might be, and they kind of just. I'm not. What the fuck? What the fuck, John?
Were you not trying to be funny there?
No.
Oh,
I know you're being serious. It's just funny too.
Yeah,
Where people like you, where the implications might be so bad that people would rather just like, it's like a don't ask, don't tell
right.
type of situation.
Well,
well, he could very well be that. I don't want to think about the chance that he could be that, so I'm just not gonna think.
Yeah. I had a few instances like that. My former roommates, when I was in Seattle with them, one of them did briefly try to watch some of my videos. I was talking about one of them was me humorously talking about that show Babylon and the main villain in it. And there was a lengthy section at the beginning where I'm talking about how I could beat up a woman and therefore I don't respect one as an antagonist. In this context, it was me saying, okay, I is emotionally dangerous, and that works for a woman, but her axe murder thing, it's not that scary because I know I could win that. And from his perspective, I'm just talking about beating up women as anime girls are moving around the screen. So he was like, yeah, I'm a little creeped out by this. I'm just going to turn it off and not watch his videos anymore.
Okay.
I had another thing happen where I have told this to RA. Those roommates, I was actually staying with their parents for a while after I left Seattle, and I had a chance to meet a certain someone who was going through the area. I think you guys know who this is. I don't want to get into it that much.
Okay.
But the mom asked me about them, was a little excited. Oh, you get to meet a person in real life? That's cool. What's their name? And they looked it up.
A famous person.
Yeah, I should have said
famous.
that. I really should have. And the very first image that came up was the front page of their Kiwi Farms thread, which had their face, and against it in type was the word pedophile in big green text.
Oh no.
Yep. And I tried to diffuse the situation by saying, yeah, this person, it's not the main thing about them, but they might have spurred out about anime's, illicit underbelly in the past and got kind of defensive. So people make fun of them this way. It's not like they're an actual pedophile. It's different. Then I came back.
What an amazing distinction to have to make.
Yeah, I know, right?
They're not an actual pedophile.
Well, I mean,
they're just pedophile adjacent.
Well, I'm sure that cost me socially with those people, but, it was worth it at the end of the day, right? And anyways, then when I got back, I was, in kind of a philosophical mood, thinking about how I need to appreciate normal people more and all that. I come down the stairs because I got home in the middle of the night because I almost got stranded in the desert. And the dad of the family was just gleefully waiting on the stairs for me and just yelled in a very funny voice, "Did you have fun with the child porn guy?" Okay, testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3.
Yep.
We are back. And I'm also looking at my recording software. Okay, you guys are still recording.
Yes.
You'll probably hear me at some point playing in the background with my cat, but yeah, I just kept it running.
Are you bored? Oh, wait, you were in the call. Okay. I thought you meant in the future I was going to hear you playing with your cat.
No.
We both just left our recordings running. So I muted my mic for that, so.
Wow, I'm just in a kind of a mood now.
Oh, gosh.
well, I'm not going to take it out on you, probably. But,
Hit me with your best shot, Green. Boom. Boom.
Yeah, that's great. We were pulling up I'm recalling like a traumatic, miserable memory, and then my computer crashes at that exact moment.
And then the world's like, the Zoom AI is like, we don't want to hear it, Green. We don't care.
Wow, even the Zoom AI doesn't want to associate with me. I really should be ashamed of myself.
I don't know about that.
Fucking AI.
Yeah.
Fucking monstrous institution.
Yeah. Yeah, my situation of guilty pleasures, I guess, the actual social hits, it hasn't been from things I've consumed because people either don't care at all or I think they're afraid of being part of this world so they don't even look into it.
Right.
But other consumers that I've had very meager associations with have kind of caused rifts, I guess. So I guess my guilty pleasure is not affiliating with other people.
Do you have any examples to share?
Well, the one I just told you. I mean, it is, I am weirdly protected in a way where the fact that people don't have any interest in me at all is kind of what my saving grace is there.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the things I've watched, like, they're at least explainable. Like, they look bad, but they at least kind of make sense. I mean, Goblin Slayer would be a good example of that. It looks bad, but once you actually know it, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like 95+% of the media I've consumed, I wouldn't have a problem telling somebody I've watched it or played it or whatever.
I only have 2 or 3 shows or manga where it's just like, nope, unless someone has watched at least 200 anime, I'm not going to bring this up with them.
Interspecies reviewers?
Oh, no, Interspecies Reviewers kicks ass. Fuck everyone else.
Okay, that's fair.
See, that's the thing with Guilty Pleasure Show. Some of them, the world will tell you, oh, this is fucking garbage. Why are you watching that? But the world is just wrong. Interspecies Reviewers is the greatest show ever made.
It can still be a guilty pleasure in the sense so that, like, you understand what the implications of liking that might be, regardless of its quality. And it's probably not something you would talk about with your parents. Let's be honest here.
No, probably not. But Interspecies Reviewer is actually a great example where it's not a show with bad values. It's just a show that, I don't know, you're not supposed to make. Interspecies Reviewers, there are no malicious actors in the show. It's all very above board in terms of, you know, being nice to other people and all that. It's just insanely over the top with the sexual content.
Which is the point.
Yeah, I mean, even in a generic isekai, there's constant, oh no, we're peeking in on the girls' changing room, or oh no, I fell down a flight of stairs and my hand went right up your ass. Look at that. You know, even broadly marketed shows have a bunch of shit like that. Interspecies Reviewers, everyone in the show is a total straight shooter. They're all very ethical people. They're good guys. Maybe prostitution is inherently wrong. Maybe. But there's not a drop of malice or ill intent in the whole cast. It's just a good, feel-good show that we can all get behind.
All of us, huh? The whole
All
world.
of us. The whole goddamn world. I will maintain in terms of intent and violating other people and, you know, overstepping boundaries, almost all mainstream shonens are worse than Interspecies Reviewers. Interspecies Reviewers, it is a show with good values. Good people watch Interspecies Reviewers.
All right.
So I'm not a good person because I haven't seen it yet.
No, you're not. And
you would be a good person if you had seen it, though.
Yeah, that's the problem, goddammit. Go watch it, then come back, then you're a good person. We can do the good person cast. RA is not invited.
It's a purification ritual, huh?
Yeah, it really is. And we mentioned Goblin Slayer. Goblin Slayer is another good example. It's a show that is exploitative. The anime in particular, they do try to titillate a bit in the sexual assault scenes. I will give them that. But Goblin Slayer as a moral ethos, as an expression of what the author deeply believes about the world, it is a show with good values. It's a show that teaches you how to be a good person. I would be totally okay with children being raised by Goblin Slayer and learning to internalize the values of the author, because he's a good guy. Yeah, it's a show where there's a lot of rape, maybe. Maybe there are some races in there that are fundamentally evil. Maybe there are some children that get beaten to death with sticks. But Goblin Slayer himself, goddammit, he is chivalry embodied. He is a defender of women. He is a protector of the faith and the realm. Good people lead good lives because Goblin Slayer exists, and we should all aspire to be more like him. Because
the only good goblin is a dead goblin.
Exactly. Is there anyone in our world?
There's no ethnogenocide implied there at all.
Well, yeah, but I will say this. It's like what C.S. Lewis said. C.S. Lewis said, well, you can be mad about burning witches, but if witches were real, then we should burn them. If witches did exist, the right move would be, tie them to a tree, set them on fire. We're not going to let them sacrifice babies and make houses out of gingerbread in the woods to lure in children and poison wells and, I don't know, not be Catholic. We're never going to allow that if they're real. Witches aren't real, maybe, so we don't do it. But if they were real, we should do it. And, if goblins were real, we probably would kill them with sticks, and we would appreciate the men who did it. Goblin Slayer would have saved
Teaching
every
life
kid in that
lessons.
school.
Oh,
Yeah, the real goblins are mass shooters. We should have an anime Mass Shooter Slayer about someone that just massacres mass shooters.
The only good
Before
mass
they-
shooter is a dead mass shooter.
dead one. Yep.
Yeah. See, this is the problem. This is everything now. I'm on a fucking tear. This is what we're doing now. There are shows that people just don't like the aesthetic, or not even they don't like it. They find it challenging. They see images which challenge their sense of comfort and normalcy, and they bail out. But the substance, the spiritual energy contained within the show is far better than what they are consuming. Goblin Slayer teaches you more about being a man than any Marvel movie ever could.
Well, you can
Especially
argue that Marvel
the
movies are
ones
not
these
trying
days.
are not trying to teach people how to be men anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
quite the opposite, actually.
Yeah, they want you to be infantilized. They want you to think, oh, Thor is out there and he's gonna stop the Columbine massacre by going back in time and using the power
And
gauntlet.
being a woman.
Yeah, exactly. Thor is going to turn into a woman, and he is going to stomp the trenchcoat mafia right on their faces. But no, he's actually going to discover a secret hidden figure who's corrupting them in secret, and then he's going to go after them, and then that's the real problem. Where no, Goblin Slayer would just go right up to like Elliot Rogers and just break his little fucking neck. Goblin Slayer would put his sword right in his fucking ass and just wave him around, cut him into little pieces. And he wouldn't say a snarky one-liner. He wouldn't try to be cool. He would just be, okay, business as usual. Elliot Rogers is dead. Now I find another Elliot Rogers and kill him.
It's got pretty dark.
Yeah, you know what the real guilty pleasure is? Normies should be guilty that their heroes are worthless. They mean nothing in the real world.
Yeah, can't think of a lesson I've learned from watching the last couple of Marvel movies.
Yeah, guilty pleasures, like sometimes it's just bad. It's like Redo of Healer. Is the main character a bad person? Yeah. But there are all kinds of bad people in the real world. You have to have a morality that accepts that you're going to have to interact with bad people from time to time. And not Tony Stark bad, where, oh, I looked at a woman's ass once, but can I still be the hero? Can I be redeemed? I don't know.
Well, Tony
that's-
Stark
that's,
is a American arms manufacturer and developer. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
actually pretty difficult to redeem, actually. But he did get redeemed. Yay!
Yeah, by dying.
Yeah.
No, even in the first movie.
Yeah,
he's
fuck
like,
him.
oh, wait, I did this.
Yeah, and then he does it again.
Iron Man
Yeah,
2,
that-
Iron Man 3.
Yeah, this is so fucked up. Why do we have to be guilty about our pleasures when normal people have so much more to be guilty about? But they're guilty in a way that makes them weak and dependent upon NATO alliances.
Because they don't want to self-reflect.
I mean, this is
No.
kind of what Otaku no Video is about, to some
Yeah,
extent.
it is. It's about NATO. Explain this, RA. Go.
No, it's just about, like, as I've mentioned in a previous podcast, why should, like, the main character comes to a realization that, like, wait, why am I supposed to feel guilty about liking Space Adventure Cobra and dressing up in the costumes and going to conventions when, like, other people don't need to feel guilty about liking tennis, right? You could argue they're equally worthless activities fundamentally. So why is one socially acceptable and why not the other?
Yeah, and this is a good question.
Right.
Let's examine this. Why is Space Adventure Cobra less acceptable than tennis?
Because society said so.
Because
Yeah, but why are they saying that?
Because it's different and weird. And they don't want to think about it any more than that.
But what is it about tennis that makes it socially acceptable? Is it that it's so approachable? Is it that it's so
It's that
easy
it was
to understand?
already there,
Because it's
and
upper
we already
class.
said it was okay. Yeah, I guess that might be one way to
Tennis
look
is
at it.
tennis is an upper middle to upper class activity ultimately. But I mean, you can use this for anything. You can use this for anything. American football,
Yeah, especially
etc.
American football. Yeah.
Yeah. But why does class matter so much with the guilty pleasure thing? Is it just the idea
Well,
high
I think
quality,
it's
high
just a
status
specific
people?
example.
Yeah.
Class doesn't really have much to do with it.
And that's like, the Marvel movies are middle class morality par excellence. That's what they are. Because the Marvel movies are about you never exercise real choice. You never have real power. Your morality is you cozy up to people who are better than you, who do have real power, and you just, you just bask in their light. You just bask in the green glow of the Hulk as he beats Loki up, who is also glowing green. There's a lot of green heroes, I guess. Green Lantern also, now that you think about it. And Green Lantern's actually an even better example, even though he's DC, because he's part of an institution, a shadowy institution that spans through the whole universe that you never
He's a space
see.
cop.
Yeah, and you can hold on to the idea of you could be one of them someday, but are you trying to be? Are you looking for a Green Lantern ring?
No, I'm pretty sure the average person would consider that beyond them.
Okay, I'm kind of spooting off now. I don't know, I'm just mad. Why do people look down on stuff? Why do people look down on things that are better than anything they could ever do or appreciate?
Because they
I mean,
don't want to go through the growth that it would require to be able to enjoy that.
I mean,
Yeah.
but we're guilty of that the same way too. It's just like everyone has some type of hierarchy in their head in terms of like
Right.
what
but
are valuable hobbies and which are not. It's just like
I think being the out group, quote unquote, for that probably helps us understand that a little bit more than people who would just do whatever's socially acceptable and nothing else.
Yeah. And that is an aspect of us where all of us, we do have an understanding of these things are good, these things are bad. We all like stuff that is bad. In terms of we all like stuff where we might appreciate the sentiment, but the craft and the quality going into it might not completely be there. There's plenty of that. And also, we all like stuff where we know it's just not good. It just doesn't have that uplift that you get from something really good, but we understand that actually is real. Most people, well, I don't know most people, but so many people out there, the most judgmental people, they think, oh, this is bad and this is good, but they don't have any real concept of what really good art is. They just have acceptable and unacceptable.
Right. Well, they run through things through the what is acceptable and unacceptable filter, not the do I like this or what value can I extrapolate from this filter.
And another thing I'm thinking about, RA, you kind of brought this up with the Happy Feet thing. You really exposed yourself by admitting that you like Happy Feet, that you have a burning desire in your heart to be a penguin who dances. And this is what keeps you up at night, every night. You stare at the ceiling thinking, God damn it, I want to be a dancing penguin in the Happy Feet universe. Maybe Mr. Popper's penguins as well.
yeah, you got me.
I just want to be owned by Jim Carrey. No, I'm not. I'm joking a little bit. But what do you guys think about this? Like, guilty pleasure media, it is almost always associated with vulnerability. Is that true?
Yeah, there has to be some kind of an element there because you wouldn't consider it a guilty pleasure if there wasn't anything to be vulnerable about liking the media.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, is social unacceptability though the same thing as vulnerability?
I
Like,
don't know.
Yeah,
I think it might be.
I don't think there's necessarily always an overlap. It's like it could be socially unacceptable to play Grand Theft Auto in front of your parents, but are you vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable by playing that? Like, probably not. I don't
That's
think
a
you would
good
be.
question, but that is an aspect of what we're talking about. Where Grand Theft Auto, your vulnerability there would be punishment by an authority figure.
Mhm.
Where I would be willing to say your parents would probably be less upset by the idea that you were into Grand Theft Auto than the idea that they were allowing you to play it. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Like with Grand Theft Auto, you hear the phrase age appropriate. The idea there would be, it is okay fundamentally for people to play stuff like this. They just have to be mature to where they understand the difference between reality and fiction and all that. Like, does that make sense?
We appreciate, or as a society, we agree that you have to have a certain level of maturity to be able to engage in this behavior without it drastically determining your behavior in the future.
Yeah, where it's not fundamentally weird. Playing Grand Theft Auto is not a fundamentally illegitimate activity. It's the person that's the problem. It's not that the game is the problem, it's that the person playing it is the problem. Where with a lot of otaku stuff, like Senko-san, for example, would be a perfect example of it. It seems like the media itself, to some people, is fundamentally illegitimate. The fact that you like it, it can never be appropriate in any circumstances ever.
Is that one really controversial?
I think so. I mean, to normies it would be, right?
I guess so, yeah.
I mean, we can't. I'm not judging things within otaku-ness.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm kind of evaluating that from a different lens right now than a normie one. So you got a point.
Senko, yeah, it wasn't very controversial within the anime community at all. But I would totally agree that like if you show that to a normie, like
I think
they're
most
not
normies would probably be like, "What is there to like about this? I don't understand."
Yeah, I think it might go a little bit deeper in terms of the judgment there. As well too. It does touch upon some intimate issues, and then also about loneliness, and then there's also the fact that it's like there obviously are some sexual implications here in regards to the 800-year-old little fox girl involved there as well too. So when you combine those two things together, yeah, I think it's probably going to be more confusion than anything from a normie. But I don't think they're gonna, I don't think they're necessarily gonna be like, or at least be attracted to the aspect of you that is attracted to that show. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you liking that piece of media would not be considered a attractive feature.
Definitely not. No.
I mean, at best, they're going to be indifferent.
At best, they're going to be indifferent. At best, they're just going to be confused, and at worst, it's going to be like, ugh, this does not indicate like someone who's moving up in the world. So to speak.
The 800-year-old fox lolly is just embarrassing because normies know cat girls are where it's at.
Yeah, I don't think they've even made that mental leap, to be honest. Like, it's objectively true, but they haven't made that mental leap.
Oh, you. I do think there is the vulnerability aspect where I think things that show weakness are kind of low status by default.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Where if
that would make sense.
Where the appeal of something like Grand Theft Auto is, man, I'm fantasizing about being powerful and out there in the world, hitting hookers with sticks, stealing
it's a power
money,
fantasy,
being racist. Yeah, it's a power fantasy. It's a high status projection image of yourself.
Right.
Where things like
Senko is a sympathy fantasy.
Yeah, Senko is, wow, I am low status. I really hope someone helps me with that at some point.
It's not even get me out of my status problem. It's just that, man, my life sucks. It'd be nice if somebody could just be nice to me for 5 minutes.
Yeah, that makes you a loser. Yeah. Feeling that way. Like,
yeah,
I'm not judging you directly there by saying that. I'm just speaking in general. So.
Because admitting that you want that, or at least you're attracted to the fantasy of wanting that, is an admission that you can't get it under normal conditions. Yep. So it's an admission of failure on some level.
Yeah, like the only way that show could appeal you to at all is if you're already currently in that state, or you're out of that state, but you can still relate to it so heavily because you were exactly in that state. It's kind of like why some people have a viscerally negative reaction to something like Watamote, which is about like a very like a hilarious but like very socially anxious girl, and they're like, oh shit, like that, like Tomoko reminds me so much of me when I was in like high school or something like that. And it's just like I don't find it funny. Like I don't enjoy seeing it passed off. And like not only do I like relate to it very much, but like I'm uncomfortable seeing it passed off for humor because I had so many embarrassing difficult situations that like they're obviously exaggerated in the show, but like the mental state was so similar that to what I was in there, and seeing it passed off for laughs is like not okay. I think it's fucking hilarious, but I can see why someone could relate to it, but also not like it either because of
Yeah, it might
what
just
it reminds
make
them
him
of.
feel too close to home.
Yeah, it hits too close to home. So, so I guess there's a way that you could dislike it because it hits so close to home, but I don't think that that's. But like you're laughing at Tomoko in that show. Like you aren't laughing with her, you are laughing at her because she's a loser. Um, but like something like Senko-san, it's different. Like you're not laughing at him. It's he is a
Right. Well,
loser.
the main character is
but
clearly he's not really a loser. He's just overworked and stressed.
He's just a normal
Yeah, but,
guy
like-
in a world where that's not enough.
yeah, like I'm using the word loser here loosely, but like he's getting his shit kicked in at work, and he's not like defending himself. Like he can't say no to
Right.
things. He can't stand up to his boss. He's just like a fucking getting kicked basically all the time, and he just takes it basically, and then he goes home to his shitty little apartment, and there's no one there. So it's like when I mean loser, I'm not even using it in like a judgmental way. He's just like a kind of the short
doesn't
end of
have
the
much
stick
going
at
for
life.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the short end of the stick at life. So yeah, admitting that you like that, I do think that like to like that show, you either have to be experiencing that or relate heavily to it because you experience it, and in some ways that is obviously an admission of failure, like off the bat.
Or at least admitting that your life is not in a position that you would like it to be.
Yeah, and people don't. That doesn't project confidence. That doesn't project positivity. To some
Right.
extent, it's in some ways an admission of failure, and that's like not an attractive trait in most people. So in some ways, it is actually kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. In some ways, where it's like you're clearly using that media to cope with a bad situation that you're in, but it's also like it's not really doing anything to get you out of it either.
No, because there's no.
Because it's like there's nothing in this situation is remotely like I'm saying it's like fairly harmless. I'm not judging it in that way. I'm just
Right,
saying
right.
that like no one's coming to save you. Like no one is coming
Yeah.
to go out of their way to help you get out of the situation. It's kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah, they are. Didn't you see the Marvel movies? Spider-Man's gonna show up any minute now.
Yeah, so maybe the West does suffer a little bit from that
From
that
the
feeling as
savior
well
syndrome.
too. Like Welcome to the NHK is like another example of someone going out of their way and inconveniencing themselves trying to help someone in a very difficult spot. It's like that just never happens. So
That
not,
also
not
has
from
the
a,
added,
not from a stranger at least. No, doesn't happen.
well, and NHK has the added element and the very realistic element that the person with the savior complex is arguably worse than the person they're trying to save.
Yeah, that is a difference between that and Senko-san, definitely. Because
Yeah, no,
Senko's fine.
Senko is better.
Senko's
Yeah.
not. Senko's objectively a better, and not in a difficult spot really at all. So
Yeah, she's a god.
not really. Yeah. So it can only be so tough for her.
Being nice because she feels like it.
Yep.
Yeah, she literally just took pity on him. There's really not much in it for her. She just likes him. It's like, damn.
That sure would be nice.
So
Or you might get
Anyway,
hit
go
by
ahead.
a truck and wake up in another world where everyone likes you.
seems like it could be potentially
That
an
would
even
almost
worse
be worse
situation.
in a way.
Yeah, in some ways.
It would be?
There's nothing worse than being liked by somebody you're not interested in.
Oh, yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts? Is there any aspect of this that you feel is interesting? I mean, I probably should have done this earlier. I could ask you guys, like, if you want to bring up any shows that you see as your guilty pleasure that we haven't talked about yet. Or, like, the levels of, do you have a show that's guilty where it's harmless but embarrassing? Then do you have shows where it's like, nope, I'm just not telling anyone?
Yeah, I think we could tie it into like cover two quick things at once, because like what we were covering earlier, Green, was us talking about like how you balance like your public persona and private persona in regards to like anime, like and you were talking about like bad situations, close calls, things like that. With me, it's mainly like I'm very obviously like into anime, but it's kind of more. I was more naive earlier in my youth, where I thought that others would maybe not with everything, but would fairly quickly and easily see why something was good too. And I had some positive experiences out, like with my dad. Like he did actually really end up liking Cowboy Bebop. I think it's a really good show, and just objectively. But like, you start passing on like soundtrack music and stuff like that as much. Or like, you'll show you my brother something like Samurai Champloo or something like that, and expect that he'll think it's awesome, but it's just kind of like, he doesn't hate it, but he just doesn't really see the appeal of it. Or with a super close friend, you just give them Cowboy Bebop and they quit after the second episode, things like that. And I just kind of learned pretty quickly, maybe not quick enough, but pretty quickly. It's just like, don't bother explaining yourself in terms of why you like things. Just like I wear an anime t-shirt like every single day. Like I walk around in public. With it, in front of family and like, just general public. I've had art on my wall when my parents have visited and things like that. I've got like tons of Blu-rays around here and things like that. But like, I've just learned to just like, I don't push it. Like I don't talk about it. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with anyone in my entire family like why I like Sailor Moon ever. It's like, even though I've got like so many shirts and like shit, or at least, or at least to the point where it would be extremely obvious that I really, really enjoy it. But it's just like, I'm not even really like that interested at this point in having a conversation about it, because I don't know. It doesn't, it's like it is kind of shitty of me to like think this, but it's also like just kind of just like, yeah, you wouldn't get it. So I'm just not even going to bother. And that's like very condescending in some ways too. But it's also like, it's good that you don't get it. Good.
Yeah,
it's genuinely good that you don't get it, because that probably means that things are going better for you than they are for me. So yeah, I've just kind of learned to just like, there are very obvious like signs and relics and icons or whatever that like I'm very into this, but I don't push it unless I absolutely have to. Or if I've been back into a corner.
You don't feel the need to evangelize your preferences to other people.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Like, it's obviously great if someone else enjoys something that I enjoy, but I'm not going to assume that it's the case, and I'm not going to push it unless it just seems like it's really got to come from them and got to feel like very genuine interest.
Right.
Like, I'd recommend this thing. That's basically it.
Well, the saving grace of the otaku, I'd say, is that the otaku tend to be self-aware about what they are, and the fact that this is an unfortunate position.
Right. I was going to say, it has the benefit of, since you're self-aware enough, you usually know, if you can get a feel for the other person well enough, you have a good idea of what you can recommend, or at least what you can experiment with recommending.
Yeah, that's always a strange... That's always an odd aspect of meeting a new person in the sphere. Casually, floating things out, slowly getting a feel for the other person's power level.
Right.
Yeah, okay, I'm probably not going to recommend Monogatari to someone on day one. But, if they slowly work their way in, they say they like Monster Musume.
Day one of being an anime fan.
I don't know if you are ever really ready to watch Monogatari, because Monogatari is one of those, unless you are completely gone, there are going to be some scenes that at least make you kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, but that just goes with the territory of anime in general once you start watching enough of it.
Yeah, it does. And you inevitably get kind of pulled down. I've said many times, I see Monogatari as the gateway anime, where if you are not an otaku, it is impossible to like Monogatari. I don't care if Monogatari is the first anime you've ever seen. If you like it, you're an otaku. It's the line. And one thing that makes Monogatari so amazing at that, and I guess we'll probably talk Monogatari at some point. That is part of why you're watching it. One thing that makes Monogatari so amazing at that is Monogatari takes all the tropes that filter people out like fucking crazy. Every trope that anime uses... what?
Yeah, it's the ultimate filter. It really is.
It's like that thing with planets, where we know, it's the great filter. Are we to the stage where we're going to meet intelligent life, or are we about to be crushed by a massive AI system? Monogatari, if you can get through it, you are one of the chosen few. You are an elite vanguard. You're like the Survey Corps in Attack on Titan. You're going to drop and disappear at an amazing rate, but you're also an elite unit that can just transverse the anime landscape in a way that people on the ground can never comprehend. You're allowed to go outside the walls and see the horrors that lie beyond.
And what's our reward for that? Nothing.
Death.
Fucking nothing. Literally nothing.
Loneliness and despair, and eventually getting devoured by giant archetypal representations of desire. Oh, fuck, wait. This is actually scary now that I think about it.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. You need to watch it.
John.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna ask John how he compartmentalizes his public and private life here in regards to this.
Well, I'm fairly reserved in my public life as far as what I talk about to people. I answer questions if people have them for me, but I'm not enthusiastic about the stuff that I'm doing unless somebody's asking me for more information. So, like my parents will say, "What did you do?" And I'll be like, "I played this game with these people this weekend. We did this." And if they don't ask me for more information, I don't go into more detail than that. I was just gonna say, usually that's enough for them to accept it as an answer and not feel like I didn't give them enough information. And it keeps me from being an overzealous weeb about things like, "Oh, you guys should watch this. It's really cool."
I think I'm in a more extreme version of that, where basically everyone in my life has kind of written me off at this point, at least on a cultural level, I guess. Where I think people have just settled into the realization it's not worth trying to dig into what really... Fuck, oh, ignore that. God, ignore that. Destroy that now.
We already know your first name.
I know you do. Have it destroyed. No one can know but me and you and Thupa and Haynes and 5 other people. I think people have written me off, at least on a cultural level, where they understand, okay, don't dig into what Green does because you're not going to find anything of value, anything you care about. It's only going to cause confusion and problems and annoyance. Just deal with him in the moment and don't ask questions. I think that's where most people are with me. And I'm very reserved in public to the point where I don't even really try to dig that deep with people who I know casually. This was actually really funny the other day. I was at work. I was working with my assistant, helper, coworker guy. And he was asking, you have headphones on all the time. I have no idea what you listen to. What are you listening to, Green? And I said, oh, I'm just listening to a podcast. I did not tell him it was mine. And that moment so perfectly encaptured how I conduct myself in public, where I can just say, oh, I'm listening to a podcast, and no one would assume it's one that I made.
That's fair.
Kind of a flex, actually, in some ways.
It's kind of funny, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's like writing a novel under a pseudonym. You don't have to tell people it was you, and then you hear somebody say, "Hey, that was one of my favorite books." You're like, "That's cool."
What are you listening to, Green? Me.
Yeah.
It is kind of psychotic to be listening to recordings of yourself just in your daily life.
What's your favorite music? Mine.
Who's your favorite composer? Me.
Poor Beethoven.
Yeah.
But I think at some point most of us learned that being enthusiastic about literally everything we liked would only get us scorn. So
or just best like general disinterest. Not necessarily
right.
scorn.
Well, yeah, because you don't want to waste the energy being excited about something if the person you're trying to talk to about it is not interested in at all.
I did that a lot. It took a while to learn.
I did that a lot
as a
kid.
that.
I feel like I learned it pretty quick, but that may just be me.
It probably is just you. I have and continue to have issues with that, where at this point I've given up, but for a long time that was me as well.
Yeah, I think it's something it's not something you can know at first. You just have to learn through repetition and getting beaten down over and over again.
The more you actually interact with other people too, it's the easier it gets to understand when it might be appropriate to recommend something or talk about something.
And speaking of things that you make, I actually am in a weird situation where, with me, there's plenty of media I consume that would be embarrassing for one reason or another, or have in the past. But with me, a lot of the most embarrassing media would be stuff that I've made.
I could see that.
I mean,
not to insult your stuff. I just mean I could see why you would feel that way.
No, that's completely fine. Insult my stuff. I mean, on this podcast is on a
No,
channel.
I like
that
your
has
podcast.
Yeah, but this podcast is on a channel that has all my old videos, which sure, some of those are okay, but I would never. I have nightmares sometimes about walking into work or a family function and people have the TV on and they're playing my videos on them.
Oh.
If that ever happened, I would just turn away and leave. And the only thing that saves you is that nobody cares. And RA knows I have some old videos that were so embarrassing when I made them, I just kind of buried them.
That's true. I don't think you had like many of them, but you
like,
had
RA,
one or two.
you've seen my Senko video. I think
It's a great
you,
video.
Thupa, and one of my siblings are the only people who have seen that video.
It's a great
Is it
video.
not on the YouTube channel?
Nope.
Okay.
It's unlisted. It's a secret video that no one can see but me.
in your selected hand-picked in circle, basically. Those are the
Yep.
only folks.
Yeah, basically. Where the video I made about Senko, I made it in, I think, January or February of 2019, right before I moved into the corona stage of things happening, right before I moved to my apartment I was in when that happened. And I made it when I was having a really bad depressive episode, and so it was just this somber, maudlin expression of pain where I'm openly just watching Senko because I'm like about to kill myself. And so my options are watch Senko or kill myself, and that's just where I was.
And I guess you watched Senko, huh?
Yeah.
You're
See,
still
take
here.
that, normies. Does your media ever save your life?
Probably not.
I don't know. I can't imagine somebody said, I watched the football game and decided not to kill myself. Like, can you imagine somebody actually saying, oh, my sports team finally won?
I have at least
And I
heard of it
decided not to
happening.
kill.
I have at least the only normie piece of media I've ever heard where it actually like did prevent some people, at least one person, from killing themselves is "It's a Wonderful Life."
Aww.
Not me personal, and that's not what saved me. I like the
Right,
movie a
right.
lot,
I
but
didn't.
I have at least heard that it has given people like being basically on the edge of giving up and actually giving them some perspective and hope that things can actually get better.
Yeah, when that
So-
movie's a really good perspective. It introduces a new way to look at life for some people that might not have experience with looking for different ways to look at life. Because a lot of times, if you can just reframe your situation, it completely changes how you feel, even though nothing has changed.
It's like, yeah,
I was-
did you achieve any of your immediate dreams? No, but the impact you had on the people around you, that life is so immeasurably better because you existed, that it's like, yeah, is it like the sexy version of what you wanted your life to be? It's like, no, it's not. But if you hadn't been here at all, like all these other things would have been fucked. So like you gotta count your blessings as well too, and realize that like you did matter, and it's okay to embrace that and be at peace with that.
With my Senko video, it was kind of like that, where I got into a weird stage of mind because it took me a long time to make the video. And in a weird way, making a video about how bad my life was almost became a replacement for living that life. So it wasn't even like I was actually living my life. It's like I was seeing my moment-to-moment existence through the lens of the video I was making about it, which was also a video about Senko-san. And it's almost like I just dissociated into the video process to not live my actual life.
Interesting.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. John, I need to step away for just a moment. You should have a thought about a thing you want to say or a direction you want to take things. But I'll be right back. Give me like 2 minutes.